Gurston Down to contest the Nicholson McLaren British Championship.
As we return down the hill, let's take a look at how the British Hill Climb Championship scoring system works. There are 2 rounds of this 34-round championship at each meeting, each of which is based on a separate top 12 runoff in which championship points are scored. All competitors have to set qualifying times during the day's official competition runs, and these are vital as only the fastest 12 competitors get into each runoff for a chance to score points. In the runoff itself, the fastest driver scores 10 points and so on down to 10th fastest, who scores 1.
Speed hill climbing is all about driving along a stretch of tarmac in the shortest possible time. It involves a mixture of very, very high speed sections and slower speed sections like the carousel here at Gurston Down. The entry to the carousel starts with the hollow bend, a daunting corner taken pretty well flat in most of the cars, reaching speeds of 135, 140 miles an hour. You enter the corner by crashing over the curbs on the right hand side, touching the ones on the left and then turning in as aggressively as possible. Quick exit from here is absolutely vital. Following Deer's Leap, there's a tight left-hand corner known as Ashes. It's critical here to get an early entry, run over the curbs on the inside and get on the power as soon as possible. Because from Ashes, it's a steep climb up to the finish line where the cars with the power advantage have a real game. So now it's over to the start line, the start of the qualifying runs, and commentary from Jerry Stern.
Thanks, Tony. Well, conditions extremely wet for these opening runs in this British Championship meeting. Even Jim White has a problem getting the power down on his Mini away from the start line. Now it's Ralph Pinder on his very first visit to Gurston Down with a Peugeot 205. So not only has he got to contend with the weather, but he's also learning a new hill as well. But real problems getting the power down for Roger Banks in the big twin-turbo Audi as he heads off down the hill into the unique chute at Gurston Down towards Hollow Bend. Now it's over to Tony Wiltshire, who's talking to a man who's exchanged a microphone for a steering wheel this weekend.
Here's a familiar voice from the world of MotoGP, Toby Moody. Toby, you're a keen hill climber and have been for many years. Today driving a 600 Force. What got you into hill climbing in the first place, Toby?
The old man really at Shelsley Walsh. Came along to Shelsley probably when I was about that high or something or other. Sat in the commentary box with father at the Top S for many years. And then had a go at commentating when I was about, 19 years old, 20 years old, I can't remember now. Got into commentating, went on to do the MotoGP on the telly, as I still do. And nice to actually stop talking about it, but actually get in a car. So Bill Chaplin and I drove this car a couple of years ago. He always beat me by about 0.2 of a second, but in the dry practice yesterday I managed to beat him for the first time. But today it's a clean sheet of paper in the wet.
Absolutely.
So here is Toby Moody driving the Ford Suzuki that he shares with Bill Chaplin. Toby's not actually registered for the British Championship, but he'll be out to beat Bill if he possibly can. So here's the first of our British Championship contenders. It's Mark Goodyear at the wheel of Pat Roach's OMS Suzuki. A replacement engine after the blow-up at Barben Manor. Mark really trying to make the cut, and he cuts it very fine indeed at Hollow Bend, but unfortunately just fails to qualify. Here's Welshman Ivan Price now, former rally driver, yet to get any British points on the board this year, although he did score last year with the Suzuki-powered OMS. And it's a good run from Ireland, qualifies 11th for the first of our 2 runoffs. This is Lynn Owen, wife of OMS constructor Steve Owen, out in the brand new carbon fibre tub for 2008, the OMS with Suzuki power. Lynn Owen and Steve shook the car down at Barber Manor a couple of weeks ago, and it's going well here at Gurston Down. Now it's Will Hall in his first year of single-seaters, having formerly driven a very rapid Westfield Vauxhall. He's at the wheel of the Ian Dayson built Force. Now it's Tim Wilson with another of the smaller capacity bike engine single-seaters, these 1400cc OMS. Well, conditions suit these small engine cars. Can Tim make it into the runoff? He's scored points already last year, but this will be his first chance this season. Yes, and he qualifies 10th. Paul Haynes won a British Championship round at Doon in Scotland a couple of years ago with the Vauxhall-powered Formula 3 Dallara, so he'll be determined to make the cut here at Gurston today, especially in these conditions which favour him. In fact, he does get in with 6th fastest qualifying place. Paul Webster, on the other hand, with the similar Formula 3 Dallara, is just unlucky, having just failed to miss the cut a couple of weekends ago at Harewood Hill Climb. Paul Hames' strongest rival in the 2 litre single-seater class is Tom New, shown here leaving the line with the V6 Rover-powered Pilbeam. Both determined to get in the runoff, but Paul Hames made the cut in 6th place, but Tom New, with not the best of starts in these conditions, fails to make the cut. On to the big single-seaters now, and this is Paul Ranson sharing the championship-winning Gould Nicholson McLaren V8 with defending champion Martin Groves. Paul Ranson very quick in his own right, and this looks like a good run from the Bicester-based computer engineer. Really charging through Hollow Bend now into the braking area for Carousel with the 3.5 litre V8. It's going to be a good result for Paul Ranson, and he qualifies second, one of his best qualifying places of the year. Rally engineer Joss Goodyear, who works for the ProDrive Subaru WRC team, had a tremendous result at Harewood Hill Climb, his second place just a fortnight ago, but it's not a good start for Joss Goodyear, having difficulty getting the power of the big 4 litre Judd in the back of the Pilbeam down onto the road. Splashing through the spray at Hollow Bend, he's trying to make sure he keeps the car on the black stuff. Very tricky in these conditions with all this torque and horsepower, but that rather slow start has cost him valuable time, and he only manages to qualify 9th. Here's local hero Basil Pitt, who after winning the Gerston Down Top 10 Challenge 2 consecutive years on his local hill is now really a strong contender in the Nicholson McLaren British Championship. And it shows. He leaves the braking until the last possible moment for Carousel and turns in up through the complex, good enough to qualify in 8th place. Chris Merrick is having his best ever season in 2008. He leaves the line now in his big Judd-powered Gould. 4th in the championship at the moment. He's held that position for the entire season. And he looks another good qualifying run for Chris Merrick, and he qualifies in 4th place. The man who's posed the biggest threat to current championship leader Scott Moran so far this year is Trevor Willis. A little bit down on power perhaps to the big V8 single-seaters with this PowerTech Hayabusa bike-based V8. Nonetheless, Trevor Willis really goes well, particularly in these conditions. And he's going well here in first qualifying at Gerston Down. It's a top qualifying place for the Aylesbury man.
Okay, we're with Trevor Willis here. Trevor, you've just done the first qualifying runs and lead those times at the moment. Runoff's about to come up. What conditions are going to favour you in those runoffs, the wet or the dry?
The wet. Wetter the better, really. I've got a bit of power deficit here at this hill, so the people with the more power struggle to use it here when it's wet, so if it stays like this, it'd be great.
Trevor, the OMS is a fairly unique combination with the PowerTech engine, certainly starting to go very, very well now after a year of development. These conditions favour that chassis combination as well?
I think so. It's a good chassis. It's quite compliant. It's quite forgiving in ways, and so it gives you good feedback. So in these conditions, that's what you need. You need to be able to kind of feel what grip there is, because every time you go out, it's when people say it's wet, well, it's very wet, a little bit of wet, very greasy, and so you have to be able to kind of feel it and feel what grip there is. And this car certainly gives you that feel.
Certainly manoeuvrable with a fairly small footprint, wheelbase quite short.
Yes, it's perhaps a bit more nimble than the Goulds. So that helps, gives you a bit more room to play with on the roads.
Well, these conditions are playing into your hands today, I guess, because Gerston is a power hill, as you've acknowledged. So we wish you the best of luck in the runs this afternoon, and let you prepare for those and focus on that. Trevor, well done.
Thank you very much.
It really has been a tremendous year so far for Scott Moran, who so nearly won the British Championship last season, but Martin Groves pipped him at the post after a bad start to the season. But 2 wins in the first 2 rounds for Scott Moran, as he did last year, put him right on top from the word go. But in these conditions, of course, he's still got to qualify for the first of our 2 British runners. Looks good for Scott, and he's qualified in 3rd place. That'll do nicely. Now Cara talks to the 3 times British Hill Climb champion.
Martin Groves, last year you won the championship with a record-breaking run at Shelsley Walsh in October. Let's just take a look at your run. Wow, Martin, that was quick. But this year you've got a few mechanical problems and you're lying only 5th in the championship. Gurston is one of the fastest hills in the series of the championship, and leader Scott Moran is always very quick here, but you hold the outright record. Will you be going for it again this year?
Well, it'd be nice to think that we could go for it, but I think today's weather's going to make that a little bit difficult. Certainly, the speed we had yesterday was good, only a second away from the record, but today I think the best times you're going to see if it stays wet like this are going to be in the region of 31, 32 seconds rather than 25s.
So it puts a lot of time on top of it, the wet weather.
I'm afraid it does, yeah.
So the defending champion really has got to make sure of a good qualifying place for this first of our 2 British runoffs here at Gurston Down today. Snaking under power down the hill. Martin has got to make this one count. And he's very quick into Carousel, too quick, and skates straight on into the barrier. That was a big impact and it must have involved severe damage to the car. It looks as though Martin Grove's 2008 jinx has struck yet again. So Trevor Willis qualifies fastest for the first British runoff of the day, round 7, in a time of 32.42 seconds. Paul Ranson qualified a superb second fastest, but with accident damage to the car, Martin Grove's co-driver will be forced to watch the runoff from the sidelines. Championship leader Scott Moran is safely in the qualifying frame with 3rd fastest, and top 2 litre driver Paul Haynes runs an encouraging 5th. Great runs from Ian Price and Tim Wilson in their bike-powered OMS cars give both drivers a chance at their first British points of the year. Join us for more British Hill Climb action after the break for the first of the all-important championship runoffs. Before the break, we saw British champion Martin Groves add another chapter to his 2008 tale of woe with a trip into the barriers at Carousel during the qualifying runs. The mistake spelt the retirement of the Groves-Ranson partnership, from the first runoff at least. The damage to the car looks bad, but miracles can and do happen in hill climbing, so don't rule out their return to the fray just yet. If things went pear-shaped for Groves at Gurston this year, it was a different matter in 2007. Let's ride with Martin on his record-breaking run here last August.
Paul Haynes running in the 2 litre class in the Dallara. How much grip was out there, Paul?
I think it's not too bad. It's better than it looks. I think as long as you're sort of starting on the start line and you're off the rubber that's been laid down yesterday, you can get a good sort of drive onto the hill, and then as the speed picks up, obviously the aero starts to work, and by the time you're through 2nd gear, it's flat out 3rd and 4th, and then just obviously a lot more gently on the brakes as the speed comes off with the less aero. So, but yeah, it was a good clean run. Problem with the visor as always, but yeah, not too bad. It's at the top and all in one piece.
And no standing water?
No. There's always a little bit of a problem here at Gurston where the water is at the bottom of the hill. You often get some standing water there, but thankfully it's draining away at the moment. And as long as it keeps doing that during the day, then yeah, the cars will be safe through there.
I see you're sponsored by PTC here, Paul. Tell us a little bit about that outfit, because I believe it does some work in motorsport as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I work for PTC. We supply CAD CAM software and PLM software to the motorsport industry. Dallara, this car, used PTC products to design the car, so it's a nice little tie-up that we have there. They give me a little bit of help, and we give them a little bit of help in return. So it works well. But these are great cars. Yeah.
I'm sure they are. They certainly look the part, and there's a lot of them on the hills these days.
There is. Yeah, they're very popular. Sort of Formula 3 cars from the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. Yeah, great cars to convert onto the hills. They work well.
Now it's time for the first of our Nicholson McLaren British Championship runoffs. These and only these runs are when championship points are scored. Remember, it's 10 points for a win, down to 1 point for 10th. And first away, Roger Moran leads off round 7 of the British Championship in the Gould GR61X. Looks another quick, smooth run from the 1997 British champion, using all the road at the Carousel complex. Now it's just the left-hander at Ashes before getting the right foot hard down for the run over Burke's Rise towards the finish. And Roger Moran crosses the line. It's 32.68 to open the runoff. Now, Iron Price did very well to qualify with a little bike-engined OMS. Brings the car to the line in search of his first British Championship points of the year, waits for the green light and gets it. Away goes Iron Price, the former rally driver who's brought that sideways style into British hill climbing. Scored points last year down the bottom end of the runoff, but of course underpowered car compared to most of the big single-seaters, so uses all the road and plenty of the curb as well in the carousel complex. A bit of understeer on the exit though, but Iron Price really pushing on hard after qualifying in 11th place. Heads for the line now over Burke's Rise, and Iron Price 34 seconds exactly. So that's going to be second place at this stage. Now his fellow 1600cc class runner Tim Wilson, who again, no stranger to the British Championship scoreboard, scored points last year, but again, like Price, looking for his first British Championship points of the year in a similar 1600cc carbon fibre OMS. Once again, using all the road in the carousel complex, Tim Wilson heads for the final left-hander after qualifying 10th, 1 place ahead of Price. Price currently second in the runoff at this stage, and Tim Wilson over the line. He now goes into second, 33.41. Now local hero Basil Pitt, the man who's already won the Gerson Down Top 10 Challenge at his local hill 2 years in succession, at the wheel of this new Gould 2.8 litre Nicholson McLaren V8 engine car. Looks a good clean run from Basil. He really knows the hill well. Time to beat at the moment is Roger Moran's 32.68 as Basil Pitt heads towards the finish line for his one and only runoff shot in round 7. He's over the line and 31.93. Basil Pitt takes the lead from Roger Moran. Now Rob Turnbull. 1 or 2 problems here at the meeting, and as we mentioned at Barben Manor just a couple of weeks ago with a misfire. Well, the car running well enough to allow Rob Turnbull to qualify in 10th place. The most experienced driver in hill climbing, who first finished 10th in the British Championship way back in 1976 in a Brabham BT30. But a lot more power is under his right foot now with this XB Cosworth powered Gould. Well over 650 horsepower Rob Turnbull's handling as he slides through the top part of carousel now into Ashes. And the car still not running absolutely clean as he heads for the line. Basil Pitt's time to beat 31.93. Well, it's still only a 37.06 for Rob Turnbull, which is currently only good enough for 6th. But here's Paul Hames now. Already a British Championship win under his belt at Doon Hill Climb in the wet a couple of years ago. Leads the 2 litre class in the class runs with the 2 litre Vauxhall powered Dallara. So Paul Hames in with a good chance on the still slightly damp track, but still dry enough to just squeal the tyres, under braking for Travis Hill, but slides the back round at the hairpin. And Paul Hames chasing that time now of Basil Pitt's 31.93. He heads for the line, and it's 32.61, which puts him into second place behind Pitt. Now it's Scott Moran, the British Championship leader, a healthy lead in the championship, but with Martin Groves not running, his greatest rival, he'll want to cash in on that advantage and increase his point score still further. He's hurtling into carousel now. It looks quick for Scott Moran, but he lost a lot of time there with that sideways moment. That could cost him a good half second or so. He's still chasing Basil Pitt, who still leads with a 31.93. And Scott Moran over the line, but only good enough for second place at this stage. So Basil Pitt leads the runoff, and the only man who can deny Pitt his first ever British Championship win is top qualified Trevor Willis. Qualified in a 32.42, but in much better conditions now. The time he has to beat is Pitt's 31.93 to take what will be his 3rd British Championship win of the year. Slides through the bottom part of carousel into Ashes now. Once again, all 4 wheels slide across the tarmac, but he gets the power down now, heads for the finish line, and it's 31.05. Trevor Willis takes the win. So after today's opening runoff, Trevor Willis scores the third British win of his career in the OMS PowerTech and maintains his strong second place on the championship table ahead of 1997 champion Roger Moran. Willis's win denies Basil Pitt his first ever victory, but second place is still the best result of the local man's career, particularly as he managed to edge out championship leader Scott Moran to third. A fine fourth place by Paul Hames in the top 2 litre car outran Roger Moran by just 0.08 of a second. In midfield, the tiny bike-engined OMS cars of Tim Wilson and Inan Price bracketed Jos Goodyear's potent 4 litre V8 Pilbeam, though Chris Merrick finished a disappointed 9th ahead of Rob Turnbull's off-song Gould Cosworth.
Back with Trevor Willis after the first runoffs. Trevor, you had a lead in practice. You consolidated that with a win in the runoffs. Well done.
Thank you.
Were conditions much different in that relative to the practice runs?
Yeah, the slower bits were pretty similar, but the faster parts, there weren't the puddles there. But it got a bit kind of slimy and a bit greasy. So it just, as ever with wet, never quite the same all the time, but just slightly quicker, I think. Yeah.
Totally unpredictable, I would imagine.
Yes.
Well, there's certainly a healthy time margin over yourself and second place man Basil Pitt. So well done and good luck in the second round this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
During the first qualifying runs this morning, Martin Groves had an off at Carousel and hit the barrier. It's caused a considerable amount of damage to the car, particularly the near side front. These guys fortunately share a large consignment of spares from Gould and can generally get a lot of the damage repaired pretty quickly. Plenty of willing helpers here. Fortunately, the tub's undamaged. The damage is really restricted to the nose cone, front wing and near side front suspension. There's every possibility of getting the car repaired for this afternoon's runs, but to get his co-driver out, Paul Ranson, in the first batch of the runoff is a little bit marginal.
So now we're into the second class runs of the day, which are qualifying for the second runoff, round 8 of the British Championship. Chris Cannell first away with the SPA Judd. Now it's Charlie Smith with the 2.6 litre Millington powered Pilbeam MP43. Another of our Guernsey competitors here today, really charging on hard over the finish line in the sports racing car. Now Richard Brown, former outright record holder at Shelsley Walsh, but not in this car. This is the 1 litre Ford Suzuki that he regularly shares with son George. Now let's take a ride up Gerston with Ben Stapely in his Datsun 240Z. This time from some slightly unusual viewpoints. And here's Lynn Owen once more aboard this brand new OMS chassis, 1660cc Suzuki powered carbon fibre tub built newly for this year. Another of our Channel Island visitors now, Andy Bugord with the Suzuki powered OMS sports car. And here's Will Hall again in his first year of single-seaters, really going great guns in the Ian Dyson built Force, one of the latest cars in this line. Once again, motorcycle Suzuki power. But here's the quickest Force on the course now. This is Darren Luke looking for a class win. He's not registered for the championship, but really chucking this new Force around now, sliding out of Carousel and charging into Ashes now, hangs the tail out on the exit. It's a quick run for Darren Luke. He's not registered for the championship, but it's good enough for the class win.
Here we are with Bill Morris from Haverfordwest. Bill's an experienced campaigner, been running for 40 years, I think, and a regular at Gerston.
Yeah.
Bill, what is it that appeals about Gerston? Because it's a long trip for you to here.
Well, it's a long trip, but it's such a wonderful venue, which has improved over the years that I've been coming here. I've been coming here since 1970, and I've seen huge improvements. And the competition is always strong, and the club is very good organisers, and they do a wonderful job. I have been now at it for so long that people say to me, "Aren't you fed up with it?" And I say, "No, I enjoy it as much today as I ever did."
That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the competition's always changing.
Oh, absolutely. I'm shall I say, competing with the children of fellow competitors, which I've been running with years ago.
That's certainly a thing with hill climbing, isn't it? You see generations of people churning through the sport.
Absolutely, yes. It's always there's always new competitors coming along, and you never must underestimate the competition, because they're there to thrash you if they can.
So here is Bill Morris in action in the 2 litre Millington Power Pilbeam, the potato farmer from Haverfordwest. Well, we already heard Bill say that he was in the sport for a long time. In fact, he first came to Gerston Down just after the hill first was introduced in 1967. Still with the 2 litre class, this is Andy Platt with one of the ever more popular Dallara Formula 3 chassis. Again, looking for a qualifying place as he heads up towards the finish line in this relatively modern piece of machinery. And another of the Dallaras in the hands of local man Paul Webster now. Comes up to the start line. All these cars powered by the 2 litre Vauxhall 16 valve unit. At the start of the programme, we saw Roger Banks driving the awesome twin-turbo Audi A4 in the wet. So now let's take a look at Roger really pushing the car hard on dry track. But back to Steve O now. This is the constructor of these OMS cars, based up at York. Brand new chassis, as we said, carbon fibre tub, really sliding the car wide. Looking for a class win here, but he's up against top men, Paul Hames and Tom New. And here is Paul Hames, one of the top men in the 2 litre single-seater class. Qualified for the wet runoff this morning, but really scratching now, and the car just drops off the cam as he comes out of carousel. That could have left the door open for Tom New to snatch the class win away.
Tom New from Southampton, this is your local hill. You've had some success here in the past, for sure, with a win in 2004 outright, in similar conditions to today.
Yes, very much similar, it is.
High hopes for today, or?
Well, obviously being underpowered compared to the big V8s, hoping today to perhaps creep in and score a few points.
Absolutely, Gerston is a power hill, isn't it?
Yeah.
But down to the class battles, the 2 litre class that you run in alongside Paul Hames, you two are the guys that are really going to set that class alight, I think.
Hopefully, yeah.
So it's a battle between Paul and yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
So here's Tom New now, not only looking for a place in the runoff, but to snatch the class win away from Paul Hames, who currently leads the 2 litre division. Well, Tom New scored his first ever, in fact his only British Championship win here at Gerston a few years ago, and it's a quick run from Tom. Not only takes the class win, but qualifies 11th.
Now we're talking to Simon and Tony Marsh. Simon, I see you're driving the Gould today.
That's right, usually I'm in my Mallock, but my father's kindly let me have a drive in the Gould.
Do you feel a bit scared about driving your
Well,
dad's
I'm
car?
very excited about it. I haven't picked the best event because the best in the country are here to compete against me, so I might show myself up. But I have had a brief drive in it last year at Longleat. I had 2 dry practice runs, and then the heavens opened and they called the meeting off. So I've had a little bit of a go in it, but this is my favourite venue and one that I know well, so I'm thoroughly looking forward to having a proper run in it today.
Cool, so it's all exciting for you today.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And how about you? How does it feel to lend your son your car?
Well, that's all right. That part of it's all right. It's a question of, can I go fast enough?
Oh, so you're competing as well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not a very good spectator.
All right. Cool. So you're going to compete against each other. Does that worry you? How do you think? How do you rate your chances against your son?
Well, I hope I'll be quicker.
Yep. It's all about the test and the time and the track, I suppose,
Yes.
isn't it?
Mind you, he's got youth on his side. I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now.
But it's still something you have a strong passion for, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think our main competition today will be with each other, actually.
Rather than anyone else on the
So
track.
we won't be in the top 12 runoff or anything like that. So.
Okay, cool. So good luck for today.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
It's nice and talking to you.
Okay.
So here's Simon Marsh now having his second drive in Father Tony's Gould V6. Rounding carousel, and out of the top we switch to Father Tony, the 6 times British Hill Climb champion and enviable record in the sport. Gerson Down always attracts a strong contingent of drivers from the Channel Islands, as Cara finds out from Guernseyman Peter Clark.
Hi Peter, how far have you travelled to be here today?
Travelled from Guernsey yesterday afternoon. Brought the car over, ex-Beach Racer. I used to have a 3.4 Jaguar motor, then a 3.8 and a 4.2. Now we've got a 5.1 John Eels Rover V8 in it. Triumph Herald front suspension, Jaguar gearbox, Jaguar back end, and it goes like hell really.
So how do you rate your chances this year?
I'll probably be last, as usual. My daughter also drives it, but sometimes beats me, but if she does it anymore, I'm going to stop her driving the car.
So it's all just for fun for you?
All just for fun. A lot of money come over, all just for fun, yes.
It's very devoted, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Well, good luck for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So this amazing Jaguar-powered Sun Racer of Peter Clark into carousel now, a really forward, upright driving position, almost like a London bus in fact. Leaving the line now, after a lot of work in the paddock, it's Paul Ranson in the Gould. We can see the new nose and front wing borrowed from Roger Moran, and it's a great run from Ranson, 3rd fastest qualifying place. And here is Roger Moran in the Gould GR61X, looking to qualify in round 8 of the British Championship. And it's a good smooth run as always for Roger Moran, qualifies in 7th place. Now Bob Penrose with the big 4-litre Judd-powered OMS, the largest OMS yet built. And here's Derek Young, whose wife Sue we saw interviewed a little earlier on. This car unique in hill climbing in that it runs on green bioethanol fuel. Not a happy first run for Derek Young, who knocked the ignition switch off in the first run-off, but looking to qualify now, and he gets in 10th place. Rob Turnbull now with the Cosworth HB powered Gould. The car had a bit of a problem at Barber Manor a fortnight ago with a misfire, and it looks as though it's still here now. We'll listen to it as it accelerates over Burke's Rise. Well, it doesn't sound absolutely right, but it's still good enough to qualify 9th place. Now here's Basil Pitt. So nearly won his first ever British run-off earlier today here at Gerstone Down, looking to get in once again for a second chance. And the local man qualifies 8th. First round winner Trevor Willis will be at a slight disadvantage this afternoon on a dry track. Not quite so much power for the bike-based V8 as for the bigger Goulds. But here's Josh Goodyear really pushing on hard with the Pilbeam, locking up, coming into Ashes there. Looks a bit of a scrappy run from Goodyear with the powerful 4-litre Pilbeam, but it's good enough to qualify in 5th place. Here's Chris Merrick now into Carousel, 4th place overall in the championship in his best ever season. Once again looking for a good qualifying place. He looks quick and neat through the complex. And Chris Merrick qualifies in 4th place. Championship leader Scott Moran now knows that Groves is back in action, so he'll really have his work cut out in this afternoon's runoff. Looking for a good qualifying place, and he gets it, 2nd quickest. So Martin Groves now, the handling of the car still not sorted after it was hastily rebuilt at lunchtime. Scratching a bit at Carousel and coming into Ashes now with a big dose of understeer, nearly runs wide, but it's still a quick run from the defending championship, qualifies top. Earlier today, few expected to see the Groves Ranson Gould back in action at Gerstone, but it was a measure of the defending champion's determination that not only did he get the car repaired, with a lot of help from friends and rivals, including the loan of the nose and front wing from Roger Moran. Buddy qualifies fastest for round 8 ahead of Scott Moran. Join us after the break for the qualifying runs before our second British runoff of the day. Scott Moran cleans the front slicks as Father Roger brings the Gould to the start line for the second and final British Championship runoff of the day, round 8. Well, conditions just about as good as they've been all day here at Gerstone Down, and we're certainly going to be looking for 27, perhaps even 26 second runs before the day is out. Fastest time of the day so far is Martin Groves 27.09 for top qualifying in this runoff, but Roger Moran now his final run of the day, looks for the green light, lets in the clutch, away goes the 1997 champion down the hill into Hollow Bend with the GR61X. We'll be able to give you the split times at Carousel, just past my commentary point, into the bottom part of the complex now and through the clocks on 15.27 seconds. That's the split time for Roger Moran. We'll give you all the cars, but Moran now heading up towards the finish line to set the first time in this runoff, and it's 27.77 seconds from Roger Moran, so we're into the 27 straight away. Now Paul Ranson, a difficult day for the Ranson Groves pairing, but the car repaired, well, after a fashion, the suspension not set up properly, so they're on a little bit of a disadvantage, but nonetheless Ranson qualified in third place on 28 seconds dead, and really going well now. This is certainly his best run of the day, very quick through Hollow Bend and equally quick into Carousel. It's a split on 15.36, not quite as quick as Moran, but it's still a good run from Ranson. Out now onto the finishing straight, heads for the line, and it's 27.85. That's going to be second place at the moment. Now Alistair Crawford, first time in a British runoff for a couple of years in the Connaught Judd powered Gould, the GR37. Away from the line now, looking to score his first British Championship points then of this year. He'll be looking for something in the 15-second bracket into the split as he comes into Carousel. Well, it's 16.51, not quite as quick as he would have hoped, but nonetheless he's still going well. Should be just about in the points. He heads for the line, and at the moment for Alistair Crawford it's going to be third place on that run. Tom New now in the only 2-litre car in the runoff. Tom beat rival Paul Haynes to the class win, and like Haynes qualified the car for the second runoff. Haynes didn't quite make the cut, but Tom New in on 11th place with 29.86, but he was looking for something quicker than that now on his run for points in the second shootout. The light goes green, and New lets in the clutch. Away goes the 2-litre MP88 Pilbeam. So Tom perhaps a little bit down on power compared to the big V8s with the New Techniques built Vauxhall unit. Only 2 litres of course, but he's through the split on 16.29. That's third quickest so far. Just gets ahead of Alistair Crawford at this stage. Can he do it in the final times? Crawford's time was 30.14, and Tom New heads for the line and crosses it 30.77. Just fails to match Crawford's V8 time. That puts him fourth at the moment. Now Derek Young with the bioethanol fueled Gould. Well, as we mentioned earlier, a little bit of a problem on the first runoff when he knocked off the ignition switch, but things not going too well for Derek at the moment. It doesn't look as though he's particularly quick there, and in fact it's 18.51, quite a slow time to the split, only fifth quickest so far. Clearly problems somewhere along the line for Derek Young as he heads for the finish line, and yes, only 32.12. That's going to put him in fifth place, unlikely to get in the points with that run. So Basil Pitt brings the Gould GR55C to the line, so nearly won his first ever British Championship round earlier today. He'll be determined to try and get back in the frame, possibly even snatch him in these improved conditions. Knows Gerstone as well as anybody, so waits for the green light for his final big push. 4.8, a little bit better than that, but he's very quick away from the line, heads down into Hollow Bend at around about 30 miles an hour, as quick as anybody into the braking area for Carousel. Turns into the uphill right-hander, hits the split clocks at 16.01. Well, that's fourth quickest, but 2 wheels off on the exit of Carousels. Costs Basil a lot of time. He's certainly not going to win the second runoff. Will he make it into the points? And a 29.86, only good enough for fourth place at this stage. Trevor Willis won the first runoff to make it 3 British Championship wins under his belt, but he's under a little bit of a disadvantage here because conditions now very good and favouring the more powerful cars. But as always, Trevor really pressing on, looking for a 14-second run to the split. Yes, 14.93, it's third quickest so far. That's behind Paul Ranson and Roger Moran. Heads for the finish now, Trevor Willis, and he's over the line in 27.91. That's third place at this stage. Fresh from that second place overall at Harewood Hill Climb in Yorkshire a couple of weeks ago, Josh Goodyear brings the Pilbeam MP97, the very latest carbon fibre tubbed example of Mike Pilbeam's cars from Bourne, to the line with the 4-litre Judd KV4 in the back. Lots of power and torque at the disposal of the man who works for ProDrive as a WRC rally engineer. Well, qualified in 5th place on 28.24, so looking for certainly a repeat of that Harewood run last weekend. He's already down the hill into Hollow Bend. A bit of a scrappy qualifier, but this looks very smooth from Josh Goodyear now. He'll be looking to get into the mid-15s at the split, and it's 15.60. Well, fourth quickest so far on the first section of the course. Now he's already through. Actually just wags the tail on the final left-hander as he heads for the finish, getting up towards 150 mile an hour over the finish line, and it's 27.75. Josh Goodyear takes the lead again. Chris Merrick now, the man who's held fourth place in the British Championship all year, in what's certainly his best season so far. Here comes then the 4-litre J&F Judd powered Gould, the ex-Roy Lane MP55. Chris qualified in fourth place on 28.17 and launches the car off the line now down the slope towards Hollow Bend. He's going to be looking for something in the mid-15 second bracket to the split at Carousel. A very smooth, neat run from Merrick. Steady on the brakes, just squeals the tyres, turns into the right-hander, and it's 15.42. That's quickest so far to the split. So Chris Merrick on the pace now to take the lead in round 8 of the British Championship as he heads for the finish. Chris Merrick takes the lead with 2 runners to come. So Father Roger now takes his turn at cleaning the front tyres as son Scott comes to the line. Electric tyre heaters no longer allowed, of course, in hill climbing where they used to be, but you can spin the rears to get maximum traction off the start line. So conditions pretty good now. Scott will be using that rubber already laid on the line to get a good launch. And it is a good launch for Scott Moran. He's down the hill now, already approaching Hollow Bend at well over 130 miles an hour. This has got to be a good run for Scott at the moment. The lead stands to Chris Merrick on 27.50, just ahead of Roger Moran. And Scott Moran hits the split on 14.70. That's the quickest so far. Could this be the 6th win of the year for Scott Moran as he slides the car bodily out of ashes, heads for the finish, and Scott Moran, 26.73, takes the lead. So just Martin Groves to run now after a character building day. Damaged the car in the first qualifying, but the car now back together, although the setup and handling not absolutely correct, but he's only got 1 win under his belt so far this year. He'd love to make it 2 with this run. This will be a committed run from the defending champion. We've seen so many of those in the past. Can he pull one out of the bag now to pit Scott Moran and take that second win? Well, Moran 14.70 to the split and Groves 14.33, even quicker. Groves is in line to take his second British win of the year. He will really need that to boost his championship chances. He's only 5th on the table at the moment. And Martin Groves 26.50, fastest time of the day. What a way to end the meeting. So once again, defending champion Martin Groves pulls out all the stops in round 8, defying the odds to score what is only his second win of the year. Scott Moran is beaten into second place by half a second, while a delighted Chris Merrick is back on form with his second third place finish of the year. Jos Goodyear is back in the frame in fourth place, levelling with Basil Pitt for 8th on the series table. Still lying third in the championship, Roger Moran finishes 5th ahead of Paul Ransom and Trevor Willis, who lost out on Gerson's power slopes as the track dried out, although he still holds down second place overall on the series table. Alistair Crawford bags his first point of the season with 10th place, but Tom New and Derek Young lose out this time around.
Here with Martin Groves, clutching the fastest time of day trophy. Well done, Martin.
Thanks very much, Tony.
Took some achieving that, because the last time we saw your car was after the end of the first runs this morning, and it was looking pretty sorry for itself. Some heavy damage there.
Yeah, it was in a bit of a mess, I'm afraid. We've replaced basically the whole left-hand front corner, so wishbones, steering arm, track rod, push rod, etc. But a lot of help from a lot of friends in the paddock, got it all together, and the car was pretty good.
Well, it certainly was pretty good. I mean, Paul scored very well, and you yourself managed to win the last runoff. So an excellent result after a very difficult start of the day.
Yeah, well, we needed that one really, because championship-wise we're a little bit on the back foot. I think the score now is 5 wins to 2, so I've pulled it back a little bit. Rather handy for me that Trevor and Basil beat Scott this morning, so that was a bit of a consolation.
Well, it's going to be a close run thing this season, the way it's shaping up at the moment, because Trevor's certainly in the frame. Scott's had a great start to the season, and as you say, you've got to come from behind this time.
Well, that's right. We were coming from behind a little bit last year as well, but so we know what's required. But the problem is that we've already got 4 duff scores, only allowed to drop 6. It's going to be very, very close.
Pressure's on. You're used to handling that, Martin.
Well, yes, I suppose so, but we'll just have to see how it goes. If we can have a good weekend next weekend at Shelsley Walsh, then I'd be a lot happier.
Good. Well, best of luck for the balance of the season.
Thanks a lot.
Well done.
Cheers.
So after another competitive day's British hill climbing, Scott Moran stretches his championship lead over Trevor Willis. Roger Moran hangs on to third ahead of Chris Merrick, but although Martin Groves continues his fight back against the odds, his 35-point deficit still leaves the defending champion with a steep hill to climb.
So after another fantastic British Hill Climb Championship meeting, Scott Moran still holds the lead, and Martin Groves, after a difficult start of the day, goes off with the fastest time of day trophy.